I had just finished paying off my student loans. Money was tight, so my only option was to share rent. Imagine my surprise when I found out that all 7 of my neighbors were girls. To be honest, I felt uneasy. Despite my inner protest, I couldn't resist the temptingly low rental price. The building was 42 stories high, and the rent was only 1,200 yuan per month. The price was simply outrageous for this city. I double-checked the information 3 times, suspecting a trick, but the agent simply brushed it off, citing the large number of neighbors. The price was suspiciously low. When I asked the agent point-blank what the catch was, he just laughed. He assured them that they were decent young people who worked hard and asked them not to worry, deliberately keeping silent about their gender. I didn't ask for clarification, and that was my first mistake. I thought, oh, what difference does it make? In a big city, people often don't pay attention to their neighbors. Time flew by. On moving day, I stood at the door with my suitcase and saw 7 pairs of high-heeled shoes in the shoe closet. There were sneakers, furry slippers, and a pair of cute house slippers with an anime print. Not a single pair for men. I slowly glanced back toward the exit, glancing at the emergency exit sign at the end of the hallway. I seriously considered running away right then and there, but I hesitated for 3 seconds. The door swung open. A woman of about 26 or 27 years old stood there. She wore a black shirt and her hair was pinned up. She looked like a blade fresh from the refrigerator. She looked me over with a cold, downward gaze. I still remember the feeling, like I was being studied like a mouse by a predator. I tried to gather my courage to clarify the situation. "I'm new, my name is," I began. "I know your name, it's in the contract," she interrupted. She pointed to the blue slippers by the entrance. "Put them on." They were in their original packaging, clearly prepared for me in advance. But this reception was not nearly as warm as I expected. "Welcome," it sounded more like, "don't you dare dirty my floor." She turned and walked inside, her heels clicking. Every gesture screamed, "Don't try anything weird here." That's how I met Liu Ruyan. Then I realized she was the boss in this house. She turned out to be the director of an IT company. Her atmosphere permeated the house, strict, authoritative, the big sister in all her glory. I walked into the living room and saw 5 girls sitting on the couch. A girl with a short haircut in a tracksuit was just doing an exercise with an expander. Her biceps looked more impressive than mine. She looked at me and smiled, and the guy who came up next asked how much I could lift. My suitcase weighed 20 kilograms. Nothing special, I thought, and shifted the expander to my other hand. This guy, Bai Ningbin, a fitness trainer, was clearly stronger than the poor guy who came to the interview before me and couldn't even lift a carton of water. It dawned on me later, he wasn't testing my strength, but rather assessing my ability to help them carry heavy protein powder bags. A girl sat in the corner of the couch with a tablet, trying to figure out the store's settings. "It's here, G," a voice said, and she covered her face with the tablet. The screen was blurry, as was her image. It was Shen Yuchu, an artist who specializes in background blur and suffers from insomnia. The longest word we uttered together was attack. I sat down by the window, trying to look as inconspicuous as possible, sipping coffee. She looked at me as if I had come here not to live, but to be hired as a housekeeper. "What kind of house did you live in before?" she asked. The agent said that my room was the smallest, for all sorts of small things, but I tried to keep it light. "The soundproofing here is bad. I live behind the wall. If you snore, I'll file a complaint," she warned. "I don't snore." It was strange to see a man willing to pay thousands of dollars in rent to experience the lives of ordinary people, even though my father could have bought the entire building. But he, or more accurately, they, preferred the dorm. I'm not sure if they experienced happiness, but they certainly experienced real everyday difficulties. For example, the eternal line for the restroom. A girl in glasses, shuffling papers at the tea table, looked up and smiled at me. "Don't worry, everyone is easy to get along with," said Li Xia, a school psychologist. She seemed to be the only sane person in the house, and this was later confirmed. She was simply the best at maintaining neutrality and was the quietest. I asked, "You said there were 7 of us." "Yes," Li Xia explained. "This is me and Ruyan. Ningbin and Rongyu are in the next bedroom. The 3 of us live in the big room with the balcony. Su Beiju, Shen Yuchu, and Yi Kaingsu are there, and you're in the kitchen." I asked about Su Beiju. "Does she play games?" Li Xia replied that she hadn't left her room for 3 days, and Yi Kaingsu was still asleep. Bai Ningbin added, "She gets up at 4 in the evening. It's 11 in the morning now." I silently noted that my life in this he family would be interesting. Liu Ruyan left the room holding a stack of papers. These weren't just sheets of paper, but a set of rules. She silently placed them next to the teapot. "It's a lease," she said dryly. It was 5 pages long. I took the sheet and began to study the points. Article 1, common areas will be cleaned daily according to the schedule posted on the refrigerator. No objections will be accepted. Article 7, bathroom use is scheduled. Peak hour is from 7:00 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Each person has no more than 15 minutes. Fines for violations are harsh but fair. Article 15, refrigerator use rules. Food labeling with the name and date is mandatory. Food that's been sitting for more than 3 days is subject to disposal. After 11:00 p.m., there's a quiet period. Anyone who violates the rules will prepare breakfast for everyone. Economic sanctions. Point 25. The kitchen must be in perfect condition within 30 minutes of cooking. The stove, the hood, everything must sparkle. Cooking is allowed, but no one should notice anything was done there at all. There was a disclaimer at the end. The air conditioning in the common areas is set to a strict 26 degrees. Amending the rules without general consent is prohibited. If anyone has a reasonable proposal, they must submit an official supporting letter. Only after all residents have voted can we make any changes to our code of laws. Adjusting the air conditioner isn't a private matter, but a matter of democracy. Article 30 states that anyone wishing to hold an event must give 24 hours notice so everyone is aware. Not to be outdone, Article 31 imposed a strict ban on any romantic relationships within the group, something I had never seen with anyone other than Liu Ruyan. She looked at me completely dispassionately. Article 31, focus on the task at hand. There were 2 main rules to be observed and remembered. Remembering and following through, that was the most important thing. I signed the last page, feeling as if I were signing not a lease but a death sentence. The landlady seemed still angry. Bai Ningbin quietly whispered to me, "Don't be afraid, that's just her nature." The original rules had about 52 points. This is a stripped-down version. This didn't console me one bit. For the first week after moving, I lived like a secret agent. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and manage to wash all the dishes before 7 a.m. I meekly left the morning bath to the ladies. I cleaned the kitchen so thoroughly that I left no trace behind, as if I'd never existed in the apartment. I even tried to avoid meeting my neighbors in the hallway. If I did encounter someone, I would keep a straight face, smile politely, and walk past without stopping. Especially when I saw Bai Ningbin, who had just washed the dishes, I'd fly past at a speed that would set track and field records. At night, I'd lock myself in my small room, read books, and put on headphones. To avoid attracting unnecessary attention, I set a clear goal: to become the most skilled and discreet neighbor possible. On the 3rd day, this paid off. In the hallway, I met Su Beiju. He emerged from the room in his pajamas, his eyes wide open like those of a walking zombie. As he passed by, he didn't notice me, in the sense that he looked right through me. His eyes were open, but his soul was clearly still floating in the world of dreams. He went into the restroom. 3 seconds later, a scream came from inside. It turned out that Bai Ningbin was taking a bath there at that moment. I froze in the hallway. I heard the door swing open. Su Beiju flew out as if scalded, covering himself with a towel. Bai Ningbin shouted after him, "Su Beiju, are you blind? Is it that hard to check if the door is locked?" Su Beiju pressed himself against the wall, finally awake. "I thought no one was here. You were thinking, you're always just thinking," she snapped. I quietly returned to my room. From then on, I decided, before going to the toilet, you must knock 3 times. And on the 5th day, something even more exciting happened. 3 o'clock in the morning. A scream rang out in the apartment, bringing everyone to their feet. It was Liu Ruyan's voice. Su Beiju jumped up sleepily, and Yi Kaiangsu ran out wearing noise-canceling headphones. We all poured into the living room and saw Liu Ruyan standing on the sofa. Yes, she was standing on the sofa, pointing a trembling finger into the corner. Her face was chalk white. A southern cockroach about 2 centimeters in size was sitting in the corner. He was lazily moving his antennae as if saying hello when suddenly Bai Ningbin, without even blinking an eye, walked up and crushed him. No more than 3 seconds passed. Liu Ruyan stood on the sofa for another 10 seconds before coming to her senses. As she descended, she proudly ignored Li Xia, though the latter couldn't help but grin. She looked at us all with a heavy gaze, witnessing her weakness. "You can't tell anyone about this. Anyone, understand?" Li Xia chuckled softly, typing something on her phone. It later turned out she'd sent it to our company chat. The plan was simple: melt the icy peak and break through this stone formation. But this goal was completely destroyed on the 8th day, Saturday, when the city's food delivery system crashed. The entire neighborhood was left without the food they'd ordered. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Su Beiju ran out of the room. It was the first time I'd seen him like that. Long black hair, disheveled, eyes darker than a panda's, a look as hard as a rock. "Don't come near me." He rushed into the living room, barefoot and wearing just a t-shirt, phone in hand. At the end of the day, despair overtook him. All delivery services were closed. Xiao Rongyu tried calling all the operators. Everything collapsed. All the platforms were down. Everyone was starving. It was pouring rain outside. We watched the drops, feeling our insides tighten with hunger. We were trapped. Bai Ningbin suggested I go shopping. "You went last time," I replied. When I returned an hour later through the downpour, the building seemed to be shaking from our shared irritation. Xiao Rongyu muttered, "You've ruined my mood with your appearance." "It's a coincidence," I defended myself. "It's fate," Shen Yuchu whispered. I had half a bag of chips left, which Su Beiju would kill for. I ate a bag of hot strips yesterday, but there must have been some left in the fridge. Bai Ningbin opened the refrigerator. Inside forlornly lay half a head of cabbage, 4 eggs, a piece of tofu with a dubious expiration date, and 3 bottles of soda. I decided to take action. I sliced everything thinly and quickly blanched it. I made the sauce, beat the eggs for the broth, fried 2 eggs until golden brown, and cut the tofu into small cubes. I made fried tofu with a splash of soy sauce and sugar. I found half a carrot and a handful of green onions. I grated the carrots and fried them and added some shallots for flavor. 20 minutes and there were 4 dishes and soup on the table. Su Beiju was the first to grab chopsticks. After tasting the tofu, he froze. I made it so fast, he didn't have time to react. He put down his chopsticks, looked me straight in the eyes, and solemnly said, "From today on, you are my brother." "Thank you, Bai Ningbin." I made 2 bowls of rice, I said. "Number 10, were you a cook before?" they asked me. "No, I just like to cook for myself." If this is regular food, then what were they eating before on delivery? My smiling fish was gone in no time. I noticed him sneaking a second helping of fried tofu for the 3rd time. Bai Ningbin caught him for the 3rd time. "Didn't you say you don't eat soy?" "I broke my record today. Nutritional balance is important. Don't interfere." Li Xia laughed as she finished her meal. I said nothing, but I read 4 words in her smile. A good show is about to begin. Shen Yuchu remained silent, but ate 2 bowls of rice. I couldn't even imagine how his small body could fit so much. The only person not at the table was Liu Ruyan. "Is Sister Ruyan going to eat?" I asked. Li Xia replied that she had already eaten. She ate some milk and radishes during the day, and that was her whole lunch. I hesitated for a moment. I prepared a separate bowl of soup and some cold cabbage. I put them on the stove and covered them with a plate. No one noticed this gesture, and no one said anything. I thought no one noticed, but that night I called a friend at the university to vent. "Brother Qiang, I'm in trouble." "What happened?" "All 7 of my neighbors are women." There was silence on the phone for 5 seconds. "Say it again." 7 women, I repeated, feeling my insides tight. "Number 10, listen to me carefully." His voice became extremely serious. "You're like a fish thrown into a shark pond now. Hang in there." Everything seemed to be going well, but my inner voice kept telling me, if I just took this bait, I'd be screwed. I didn't mean to fall for it, I was just playing my part. The friend on the other end of the line grew increasingly heated. "What are you planning to do? Are you at rock bottom, pretending to be living out your last days? This is necessary so that all those fish in the pond don't see you as a threat." "I'm not a fish," I snapped. "Exactly, stick to that line," he replied, falling silent for a moment before adding, "But you said yourself you cooked them dinner." "Yes, but that's because—" "Oh my God," I sighed heavily, realizing the truth. "Congratulations, you're already hooked," he stated. Cooking turned out to be that bite. You know, in the world of fishing, the first step to intimacy is becoming the one who feeds. I hung up without a word. Opinions were divided. Some said listening to advice was more dangerous than ignoring it. At 2 in the morning, I got up to go to the bathroom, and as I passed the kitchen, I saw something strange. The one I had considered a formidable demoness during the day was now completely different. Su Beiju sat in the darkness, finishing the last of the cabbage I'd left behind. He ate with such seriousness and concentration as if no one else were around, completely casting aside any pretense of coldness. He even finished the egg soup in small, careful sips. Having finished drinking, he quietly sobbed. How can I describe that expression? It was like a cat sleeping next to a warm heater, perfectly content. Then he turned his head, saw me, and the air in the kitchen froze. He abruptly closed the bowl. I stood in the doorway, unsure of what to say. We stared at each other for about 3 seconds. I clearly saw his ears begin to turn red at an incredible rate. I didn't see anything, I said. I told you, you really didn't see anything, he muttered back, trying to save face. Yes, this was an incident best forgotten. What was that, my strange grimace or his? From that day on, Su Beiju began appearing at the kitchen entrance at the same time every day like a bewildered stray cat. He said nothing, simply standing there with an expression like, "So, what are you cooking today?" You should have seen Shen Yuchu. She was still silent, but when I started cooking, she would sit next to me at the dining table and quietly watch. One day, I glanced at her iPad and saw a sketch, a group of little people in a kitchen surrounded by a circle of fat cats. I suspect the little people are me. And cats, that's them. I didn't ask, afraid she'd shoot me a hole with her gaze. And then Bai Ningbin became the first to officially ask me for help. Number 10, my treadmill's broken, will you take a look? I opened the panel. It turned out the transmission belt had simply come loose. A couple of swipes with a screwdriver and it was done. Bai Ningbin looked at me with such amazement as if I'd performed a miracle. Her eyes lit up. Can you fix that too? It's not difficult, the screw is loose. What about the air conditioner? The air conditioner in her room was blowing weakly. I checked, the drain pipe was clogged. What about the shower? The pressure is getting weaker. It's fixable, just take it apart and soak it in the solution, I replied. Bai Ningbin was silent for 3 seconds. Number 10, do you know anything you can't fix? This is just nonsense, Yi Kaiyingsu shouted, peeking out of her room. Come out quickly, didn't you say you'd help with my system unit? The door to her room swung open. The dark circles under her eyes were deeper than Su Beiju's. Her gaze was like a sharp knife. This was the first time I'd seen Yi Kaiyingsu up close. Can you fix my computer? She asked. What's wrong with it? The fan isn't working. I looked inside. There's a finger-thick layer of dust. It's just dust. By the way, you need to change your cooling system fluid. She looked surprised, but quickly regained her impassive expression. Okay, come in. Her room was like a cyberpunk cave. 3 displays, a neon keyboard backlight saturating the walls. The table was littered with energy drinks. The curtains were tightly drawn. In the corner stood a bed and on it an unimaginable pile of blankets. It was obvious no one in this room had slept properly. I dropped to the floor to disassemble the system unit and a cloud of dust immediately hit me in the face. How long has it been since you cleaned it? Since I bought it. And how old is this piece of hardware? 3 years. There's a whole ecosystem inside. You could write a dissertation on it, I joked. It felt like several generations of spiders had already taken up residence between the graphics card and the motherboard. She sat in a chair, watching me work and sipping an energy drink. My hands weren't shaking. She suddenly said, "You're like a soldier." No, I've just loved tinkering with technology since I was a kid. There are 2 types of people, those who just unpack things and those who do it smartly. I turned out to be the second type. The facts proved me right. After cleaning, the computer worked perfectly. The temperature dropped by 15 degrees. Yi Kaiyingsu stared at the monitoring graph for a long moment, then turned to me. Her face was still as stony as ever. But there was something like a confession in his voice. Since that day, Yi Kaiyingsu sometimes texts me at 2 or 3 a.m. The messages usually look like this. The light in the kitchen flickered. Something's making noise in the water heater. Or, are you free tomorrow? I need to upgrade my RAM. Sometimes I wonder if she really needs help or if she's just testing my reaction. In just 2 weeks, I've gone from being an outsider to being a valuable asset. I became the chef, the tech support, the jack of all trades, and even the alarm clock for this house. Su Beiju now demands that I knock on his door 3 times every day, otherwise he'll sleep until noon and the bathroom will be a perpetual mess. There was another episode. It was evening and I was cooking in the kitchen. Zio Rongyu walked in. Look at my tomatoes and egg. Why are yours so tender while mine are dry and the skin is burnt? The egg should be semi-liquid, don't overcook it. Can you feel the temperature of the pan? Why should I feel it? I'm not a thermometer. When the oil starts to smoke lightly, count to 15, I explained. That's too complicated. Are you cooking or conducting a chemistry experiment? Cooking is chemistry. Yi Kaiyingsu's voice came from behind the door. It's mainly the Maillard reaction and protein denaturation. She walked in with an ice-cold Americano and looked into the kitchen with her impassive gaze. Having said this, she immediately disappeared into her cave. Zio Rongyu looked at me. Is she even normal? You've been hiding this from me for so long. I wasn't sure, but she had helped me identify the troll who was bullying me online, so I decided to leave it at that. There was wisdom in her words. The last story is about the trash can in my heart, as Zio Rongyu called it. She had a fight with her family and was sitting on the balcony, angry at the whole world. I cared even though I tried to keep my distance. She started crying. It was such a sincere cry. I silently poured her a cup of hot water and placed it next to her. I was about to leave, but she snapped, "You're standing there." She sniffled, "I didn't let you go, just stay here. Don't say anything, don't look at me." Then why am I here? I need a living person next to me just to feel like I'm not alone. Otherwise, it will be completely unbearable. Okay, I'll stay here, I replied, watching the lights in the windows of the neighboring building go out one by one. 10 minutes, no more, she added. She asked why children should obey their parents since they raised us. What if they raised us only to control us? The question seemed too heavy for me to bear late at night. I didn't dare answer lightly. I think most parents don't want total control, they just don't know how to love any other way, I said. She was silent for a long moment. You don't talk like the men I know, she whispered. They usually either tell you not to cry or suggest starting your own business. You're the first one to drop a glass of water and go silent because you don't know what to say, I remarked. It was true. She wiped her tears with the hem of her sweater. Suddenly, the familiar pride flashed in her eyes again. Okay, go ahead, but that glass of water was nice. Bring me a latte tomorrow. There's a coffee shop downstairs, I know. The fact that she specifically asked for a latte made me wonder about the logic behind her actions. There were too many mysteries about this woman. But I didn't argue. In our house, challenging women's opinions was a risky and thankless task. It made me realize how much my life had changed. The situation finally spiraled out of my control in the third week. I stayed at work until late in the evening and could barely drag my feet when I got home. Opening the door, I saw the light on in the living room. All 7 of us were there. Su Beiju was sitting on the carpet, his head buried in his PlayStation, the same music I'd been listening to that morning playing through his headphones. Shen Yuchu was drawing in the corner, a cup of tea steaming beside her. Bai Ningbin was stretching, her favorite workout playlist playing over her speakers. Zio Rongyu was applying a sheet mask to her face. The mask looked like some kind of gift card, probably found at home. Li Xia was engrossed in a book. He looked so youthful and serene. Yi Kaiyingsu, as usual, was in her own world. She sat on the couch with her laptop, the blue-green glow of the code reflected on her face. Liu Ruyan sat at the dining table, looking through documents, a cup of black coffee in front of her. I froze in the doorway, not knowing where to go. Bai Ningbin was the first to notice me. Back, are you hungry? There's food in the fridge, we warmed it up for you, she added. Su Beiju didn't even look up from the screen, merely nodded. Shen Yuchu whispered, I added a little water so it wouldn't dry out. Yi Kaiyingsu, without looking up from her monitor, said, your double-star slippers are in the closet on the 2nd floor. Did you throw out those awful cheap slippers from the supermarket? I asked. Someone chuckled quietly. Your 10 yuan plastic slippers were a disaster, Li Xia stated, smiling at me. I looked at Liu Ruyan. She didn't look up, just tapped the keys twice. The weather's nice today. Wash the dishes after you eat. Tomorrow it's your turn to change your shoes. I walked into the kitchen. A pot of stewed eggplant and egg, which I'd cooked that morning, was waiting. Next to it was a bowl of rice. I don't know who made it, but it was perfect. The rice was covered with cling film, the edges carefully folded in. The entire house was imbued with coziness and a strange, domestic order. I was alone in the room, but Liu Ruyan got up to go get coffee. As she passed, she paused for a second. Don't eat too late, it's bad for your stomach, she said as if it were a casual remark and went off to her room. I chewed the eggplant and it seemed 100 times more delicious than it had been during the day. Maybe I was hungry, or maybe, for the first time in my entire time in this city, I felt like I was home. Those 2 words, I'm home, meant a lot. Life was bustling all around. Su Beiju was scolding his teammates during the game. Bai Ningbin argued with Zio Rongyu about protein intake. Yi Kyungsu's keyboard made a rhythmic, soothing sound. I washed the dishes and felt part of this chaos. "Good night," I said as I passed the living room. 7 voices responded in chorus. The loudest was Su Beiju's, the quietest was Shen Yuchu's, and I almost couldn't hear Liu Ruyan's voice. But I saw her lips move. I went into my small room, lay down on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. From the next room, I could hear Xiao Rongyu's laughter. From above came the clatter of feet and the joyful shouts of Su Beiju, who had finally won the round. 1,200 yuan rent, 42 floors, 7 strange neighbors. I'm a university student and this all sounds ridiculous, but I caught myself smiling, then I closed my eyes. And I fell asleep. The next morning I was awakened by persistent knocking. I opened the door. Liu Ruyan was standing there. In a strict business suit with an icy expression. "Starting today, you're starting an internship at Star Technology. You'll get to know the office." "How do you know where I work?" "Because this is my company," she snapped. Her gaze was bitterer than black coffee. "I'm your immediate supervisor. Are you kidding? Do you think I'm here for a joke?" Her voice did not waver. My brain slowly digested the information. My neighbor, the director of the ice company, the one who stole cold snacks from me at night and hid from cockroaches on the couch, my boss. "So you knew I was going to work for you?" I asked. "I only found out about this yesterday when HR sent me the list of interns." The address on her resume was still the same, so she saw it. It was a cruel twist of fate. Therefore, she added, "We will have a new rule." "Article 38, I asked. "Yes, Article 38. She quickly typed something into her phone. "No one in the company should know me. We are not connected. Don't call me Ruyan, only Director Liu. No familiarity in front of colleagues. If they ask where you live, say Chengbei. If they ask if we know each other, say you've only seen me in a photo in the freshman presentation." Chengbei was a 2-hour drive from the company, so my daily fatigue had a logical explanation. Brilliant. What if we get exposed? She thought for a second. "We won't be found out." I wasn't so sure. "Hekyang was right, you're already hooked." I used to think it was nonsense, but now I understand. I'm not just a fish, I'm already in the net, and the fisherman is looking straight into my eyes. As I was leaving the house, I turned around to look at the building. Su Beiju was watering the flowers on the 6th floor, or rather, he was pouring cola on them because he was too lazy to check the water level in his cup. Someone was hanging laundry on the 5th floor, most likely by Ningbin, judging by the number of sports bras on the line. A notification appeared in the house chat. Liu Ruyan updated Article 38. By Ningbin, her colleagues liked it. The game was just beginning. Ha 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 ha. The chat room in the rented house literally exploded with Xiao Rongyu's messages. "I'm going to die laughing. What kind of script is this? Written by a dog? Su Beiju, admit it. Is this your doing?" So, here's the gist. Employee number 10 at work habitually wants to call Ruyan's sister. Director Liu is trying to keep a straight face at work, and Shen Yuchu, in response to all this drama, simply sent a shameless, hilarious smiley face. Xiao Rongyu continued scribbling. "Yi Kyungsu, I formally propose that you hack into and extract your company's CCTV footage. As a school psychologist, I'm perfectly comfortable eating this juicy gossip," Li Xia interjected. "Yi Kyungsu, just calm down," she added. "Yi Kyungsu, I'm completely calm. Technically, it's not just possible, it's entirely doable." Liu Ruyan immediately responded in chat, tagging her, "Yi Kyungsu." A system notification from Liu Ruyan instantly appeared in the chat. Article 39 has been added. Illegal access to any third-party enterprise's network is strictly prohibited. Yi Kyungsu lazily replied, "What if we enter legally?" Liu Ruyan snapped, "No way." "Okay," Yi Kyungsu agreed. "Then I'll only stream through cameras facing public areas." The entire group chat fell into dead silence for exactly 3 seconds. Liu Ruyan immediately typed, "Article 40. Members of the group are prohibited from monitoring, spying on, or controlling the movements and behavior of other cohabitants in any way." I stared at my phone screen hopelessly, watching our public contract of this crazy family grow at an incredible rate. I took a deep breath, locked my phone, and tucked it deep into my pocket. It was time to head to the subway station. Just as I was walking, Hekyang sent me a new voicemail. The recording lasted a full 58 seconds straight. He began with the main point. "Brother, the fact that you met the girl you like right at work is incredibly lucky. You're like a big, fat fish at the busiest fishing market right now. But you can't take risks or rush things," Hekyang continued to instruct. First, you need to let things go a little. The 616 method, just keep your distance and wait until this little fish tires of its own pride. I listened to this endless voiceover until the very last second, and right at the end, he managed to add, in short, relax and listen to a good song. Whatever you say, Hecking knew how to inspire with his absurd speeches. No matter what difficulties he faced in life, he could easily be considered a fisherman philosopher. Surprisingly, when he's busy fishing, he's always completely free-spirited. On the metro, I was immediately confronted with the harsh reality, just how many people there are here. I was literally squeezed into the seat between two portly middle-aged men. The air was thick with the smell of someone else's mismatched breakfasts, alcohol breath, and dampness. At that moment, my phone vibrated again. It was a private message from Liu Ruyan. When you arrive at the company, don't be nervous. 2 seconds later, another one came. Just act normal and don't get nervous. When you're nervous, you get this stupid habit of constantly touching your nose. After reading this, I caught myself subconsciously reaching my fingers towards my face. I immediately pulled my hand back in fear. Incredibly, she noticed even this small detail. My new day had officially begun. A strong, persistent premonition grew within me that everything would become even more absurd and confusing. And indeed, on my very first day on the job, I nearly blew our cover. The HR specialist led me through the office corridors. When we reached a corner office on the 3rd floor, the HR specialist pointed to a massive door. This is our director's office, Liu Ruyan. In the future, you will report directly to her. At that moment, Liu Ruyan called me through a transparent glass partition. As soon as her gaze fell on me, she tapped her index finger on the table, measuredly and sternly. If only I hadn't seen that same gesture yesterday at home when she was sitting in her chair. It was the exact same movement. At times like these, it's best to just keep your mouth shut and pretend you didn't notice. The HR officer knocked politely on the open door. Mr. Liu, this is our new intern, Xinyuan, station number 10. Liu Ruyan was the picture of sternness today. She put down her papers, slowly rose from her desk, and walked straight toward me. Her expression and her entire aura were strikingly different from what I was used to at home. At home, her coldness was domestic, lazy. I'm just too lazy to talk to you, get lost. But here, within the company walls, she exuded such chilling authority that I physically felt my legs buckle. She looked at me as if I were a blank slate. You're intern number 10, right? Yes, Director Liu, I replied as formally as I could. I've reviewed your resume, she said evenly. Your theoretical skills are good, but your actual experience working on commercial projects is practically zero. She flipped over the folder containing my documents with a dry thud. Her tone was impeccably businesslike, without a trace of personal emotion. I'm giving you a 3-month probationary period. You're required to keep up with the team's rhythm. If you can't keep up. She raised her cold eyes to me. That look said more eloquently than any words. You know perfectly well what the consequences will be. Do you understand? She added aloud, making it clear the conversation was over. The whole scene was played out so naturally and professionally that for a second I even believed this woman was seeing me for the first time. But as I turned to leave, my peripheral vision caught her thermos on the edge of the table. I knew this cup all too well. It was the one she used to brew her evening tea at home. On the plastic side was a silly, childish animal sticker Su Beiju had once jokingly stuck on it, a plump cat in black sunglasses. Liu Ruyan had thought it childish and spent a long time trying to peel it off. But the glue was incredibly set, and she simply gave in. And now the whole company is probably whispering about the stylish, strict, and ruthless business thermos their unapproachable CEO Liu uses. And I was the only one in the entire office who knew that the back of that thermos featured a silly cat in glasses. This secret kept me from maintaining a straight face for the rest of the day. My workstation was located directly across from Liu Ruyan's office, behind a large glass wall. If I even raised my head, I'd find myself staring into her workspace. What's worse, she could just as easily see my every move the moment she looked up from her monitor. During that first week, I kept a low profile, even more cautious than in the first few days after moving into the shared apartment. At all the team meetings, I deliberately huddled in the farthest chairs as far away from hers as possible. When she addressed work-related questions to me, I answered with bated breath, choosing every word carefully. Frankly, I struggled. The stress was taking its toll. My department colleagues were already whispering among themselves and had already given Liu Ruyan an eloquent nickname. They called her the end of the world. And not because she was unnecessarily cruel, but because of her incredibly meticulous management style. She could shut down a huge presentation if she noticed a single pixel off in the graphics. If an official email had an incorrect subject line, the project would be sent back for revision without a word. Whenever someone delayed a task, her glare would become truly ferocious. My colleague Chen Jai, who had been with the company for 2 years, dragged me to the tea room for a break. "Brother, here's some friendly advice. Stay as far away from this natural disaster as possible," he whispered conspiratorially. Last month, she trashed the manager of a neighboring project so badly in front of everyone that a grown man nearly 6 feet tall sat in the toilet and cried his eyes out. "And anyway, do you know why our director Liu is still single?" Chen Jai narrowed his eyes. "Because no kamikaze would dare approach her at this company. Last time, a top manager from a major supplier decided to take the initiative and sent her a luxurious bouquet of flowers right to her office. Guess what she did? She carried the bouquet to the reception desk herself and announced in an icy tone, 'Whose trash is this on my desk? Clean it up within 5 minutes or I'll throw it in the dumpster.' Listening to this, I couldn't help but recall how this iron lady would sneakily finish the remains of a cold coleslaw in our kitchen in the pitch darkness. Apparently, in private, she was a completely different person. Chen Jai looked closely at my face and stopped short. "Hey, what are you hanging around for? Do you have a fever? Look at me. Did Director Liu manage to pin you down in the first week?" he asked worriedly. "No, everything's fine," I lied hastily. "I'm just thinking about some information that's not allowed to be disclosed." Maintaining this dual status proved incredibly exhausting. Every day, this abrupt role reversal occurred immediately after work ended. During the day, she was the unapproachable, imperious Director Liu, and I was the humble new employee number 10, whose authority level was somewhere in the baseboards. I dutifully carried out my duties as a civil servant during my internship, but as soon as the clock struck evening, I returned to our apartment. And there, it became simply Ruyan again. And I became her personal jack of all trades. I fixed leaky faucets, fixed gutters, and built wooden bookshelves for her. But the most serious psychological blow to my cover came in the second week of my internship. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and a heated meeting was underway on a key project. Liu Ruyan, her face completely impassive without a trace of emotion, was methodically destroying and rewriting my work plan right in front of the entire group of 12. Her sharp comments rained down like bamboo rods, indicating that my entire concept was a cold, empty shell. I listened to her criticism, trying my best to maintain a stony, unreadable face. "Okay, Mr. Liu, I'll redo it," I replied dryly. With that, my workday was morally over. At 8 o'clock in the evening, tired and exhausted, I returned to the apartment and immediately trudged to the kitchen to cook dinner, in order to somehow relieve stress. Half an hour later, Liu Ruyan entered the kitchen silently. She was already dressed in her lounge clothes. She calmly opened the refrigerator, took out a bottle of yogurt, leaned against the kitchen counter right next to me, and began to sip leisurely. "On page 3 of your data model," she suddenly said quietly, taking a sip, "the formula you used contains the most basic, childish error. I didn't say this in front of everyone at the afternoon meeting so as not to further embarrass you," she added. I froze, knife in hand, staring at her. She calmly picked up my notebook from the dining room table and opened the relevant file folder. "Just watch this," she commanded, and for the next 40 minutes she patiently, step by step, clarified my thoughts and laid out the project's structure. She spoke very quietly, softly, and carefully, much more delicately than during the official dressing down earlier that day. And I couldn't quite put it together. Director Liu, who had publicly trashed me just hours earlier, and that homely, patient Liu Ruyan, who was now personally teaching me how to correct my mistakes in the plans, they were the same person. By the time we finished the edits, she had just finished her yogurt. She lightly squeezed the empty plastic bottle in her hand and looked at me. "Now that we've redone everything, go to bed. You should go to bed earlier." I raised an eyebrow in surprise. "You haven't slept either. You probably have a ton of work to do," she sighed. "Wasn't my job just to help you fix that plan?" I finished cooking. Ruyan was stunned, and it's true. While I was messing around in the kitchen, she wasn't sitting idle either. She was helping me, doing her part of the work. I went and checked the results. She came out of the kitchen but stopped right at the door. The potato strips were cut to perfection. This is the second time she has praised my culinary talents while standing in the kitchen doorway. The first time it was soup, now it's potatoes. At this rate, I think in 3 months she will be delighted with any dish I cook. I suddenly felt a slight anticipation of something pleasant. But just when I thought the day was going to go smoothly, someone named Wang Teng appeared. More precisely, he arrived in his Porsche street. It was Friday evening. I was working overtime until 7 in the evening. As I walked outside the company gates, I saw a white Porsche parked at the side of the road. A man in an expensive suit stood next to the car. He clutched a huge red rose in his hand. I thought to myself that there were about 99 of them. Who is so important? Then I saw Liu Ruyan leaving the office. Her expression could be described in 4 words. Like a sworn enemy. Zhuyan, long time no see, the man smiled, and I realized it was Wang Teng. I've told you many times that we have nothing to talk about, she replied coldly. Have you decided to sell flowers now? I came from the Netherlands, and for me, these street bouquets are just grass. Then let's go eat. A new Michelin-starred restaurant has opened, he insisted. I'm uncomfortable, she snapped. What's uncomfortable? You're not at work right now, are you? Liu Ruyan's expression became increasingly cold. But Wang Teng was clearly one of those people who didn't take refusal well. He began to mutter something under his breath. My father works with your company. We've known each other since childhood. You're too strict. He continued, trying to get her to talk. But suddenly Liu Ruyan's gaze fell on me. Just one glance. That look didn't bode well. I clearly wouldn't use someone like her, even if I died. Help. Anyone with eyes would understand that that look meant, I urgently need help. She came over and quite naturally stood next to me. Sorry, my boyfriend came to pick me up. My head went blank for half a second. Wang Teng looks at me, I look at him. Liu Ruyan looks ahead, her expression completely calm. The weather is nice today, she says. Wang Teng turns his gaze to me. His expression changes from confusion to complete silence. I am standing in a simple student uniform, with a bag, tired after classes. Compared to his pompous suit and expensive car, I look like a man who came out of the slums. But Liu Ruyan grabbed my hand tightly. Her palms were cold. We left first. After moving about 50 meters and making sure that Wang Teng could no longer see us, I stopped. She loosened her grip and sat down for a second. Thank you, she said. But next time, warn me in advance so that I can mentally prepare myself. There's no next time. Are you sure he's the type to give up easily? I asked. She remained silent. Don't tell anyone in our apartment about today's incident, she added. I nodded. We both underestimated the randomness of this world, because as we approached the metro, we ran into someone we knew. Zubai Zhou, who rarely leaves home, stood with a bag of sweets and headphones on, looking at his phone. The moment he raised his head, he saw Liu Ruyan and I walking together. His mouth slowly opened into an O. Ruyan noticed it too. All 3 of us froze in the middle of the road for about 5 seconds. Zubai Zhou slowly picked up his phone. I took a photo. What are you doing? Ruyan's voice dropped dangerously. He laughed, saying it was just a souvenir, and deleted the photo, but it was too late. We all knew this secret is no longer a secret. Zubai Zhou has a special feature. His language works faster than the internet. That night I returned to the apartment and pushed the door. 6 people sat in the living room, as if in a court hearing. Li Xia sat in the middle with a cup of tea and a gentle smile, but in his eyes I saw the predatory light of a hunter. When he went upstairs, Ruyan walked ahead without saying a word and headed straight to the door of her room. She opened the door and I stood in front of her, blocking her way. You don't need to try to block me. I know you can handle it yourself, but why do you still want to do this? I asked. She didn't turn around but stood by the door for 3 seconds before entering. That night she did something unprecedented. She went into the kitchen and looked into the refrigerator. Zubai Zhou, who had been playing games on the sofa until then, said in surprise, I don't think I've eaten yet. Who's going to persuade me to eat now? The handkerchief fell from his hands. You take care of him and I take care of the health of the company's employees, Ruyan snapped. She had a plan to hold a training session tomorrow. Zubai Zhou stretched and smiled broadly. What does that expression on your face mean? Nothing special. Bai Zhou ran to the door of my room and knocked. Hey, 10th, Sister Ruyan invited you to eat. I didn't have time to stop him. It was too late. Bai Ningbin sighed in his room. Sister Ruyan is inviting everyone to eat. The sun definitely rose in the west today. Yi Kaiengsu sent a message. A historic moment, please record it in the council minutes, someone wrote. Li Xia replied with a smile, Zio Rongyu, you owe me 100 yuan for the bet. Su Beiju, if you don't shut up, you'll spend 2 months in the hospital in 3 months, and Bai Ningbin will spend the rest of the year in the hospital, Ruyan snapped. There was a moment of silence in the circle. 3 seconds later, Shen Yuchu sent a sticker of a cat without a mouth. On Thursday evening, Ruyan fell ill. She returned home late, went straight to her room, and didn't appear in the living room the next morning. It was abnormal. Ruyan is the most disciplined person in our house. At precisely 7 o'clock, she always sits at the table with a cup of black coffee. But at 7:20 her door was still closed. I hesitated for a moment, then knocked. Silence. I knocked again. A hoarse, stupid voice came from inside. "Don't worry about me." It was completely out of character. "Are you okay?" I asked. "No, I'm just late for work. You go first." I took 2 steps away, but then came back. Julian opened the door. I was silent for a moment and the lock clicked. She leaned against the doorframe. Her face was pale, her lips dry, and sweat beaded on her forehead. I touched her skin. "You have a fever." "It's just a slight fever. I'll take some medicine and it'll go away." "Have you even eaten anything?" She remained silent. "Where's the medicine?" "I don't know. I guess I didn't buy it." A lonely person who had borne all the responsibility for years. The woman, who was capable of drawing up 37 contracts, didn't even have an antipyretic at home because she never allowed herself to get sick. "Lie down. I'll buy some medicine now." "No, don't. You won't be able to control me." She looked at me and that look struck a chord with me. I went out to buy a thermometer, water, and some porridge. When I returned, she was already lying in bed, covered with a blanket. The room was very clean. Everything was in its place, even the books were arranged by size, but next to the pillow lay an old, battered rabbit. The fur on his ears had long since fallen out. She noticed where I was looking and muttered, "Don't look, I didn't see anything." "You already used that phrase once." She smiled weakly, but she didn't have the strength to turn around. I took her temperature. 38.7 degrees. After she took her medicine, I went to the kitchen to cook porridge. I added just a little salt. The porridge turned out soft. When I was spooning it into a bowl, I decided to draw a smile on the surface, but then I thought it was too childish. The toy rabbit's paws fell off as I was fixing it. Ruyen had already sat up, leaning on the pillow and clutching the toy to herself. "Porridge, drink it slowly, it's hot." She picked up the bowl and took a sip. "An egg. I know you can't have salted eggs when you have a fever, but it's just an egg." She drank the entire portion. I sat down next to her and poured her some warm water. "You don't need to guard me," she said, handing me the bowl so I could go about my business. "I already asked for permission to leave my job," I replied. "Who approved it?" she asked in surprise. "When you were confused, I asked about time off. You said once, that counts." She looked at me for a few seconds and then pulled the blanket up, hiding half of her face. "Your ears are red," I noted. "You can stay, but don't come into my room more than 3 times. This is the second one. You have 1 chance left." I laughed. "Go wash the bowl." That afternoon, her temperature rose again. She could sit, but she had almost no strength. I sat in the living room, changing my plans. Her door was open. Sometimes she went out for water, passing me by. "Look at the screen," she said. "The colors on page 7 are too saturated. Are you even getting any rest? You should be closing your eyes, not looking at the monitor." "Learn from you," she laughed softly and took the glass back into the room. The others returned that evening. Subai-jo, upon learning that Ruyen was ill, first asked, "Who's going to cook today?" Bai Ningbin shamed him. "People are sick and you're talking about food." "I'm just clarifying," he justified himself. I said I'd set the table, leaving at least some of the work to Ruyen. When I walked in, she was lying down with her phone. "Put it down. Are you feeling better?" "Much better." She put the device down and looked at the tray of food. "Do you catch me every time? When did this start?" "Since the first time you stole cold cabbage in the middle of the night." Her expression faltered slightly. "You said you didn't see anything." "I said that, but I also said that good lines can be used twice." She was silent. After a while, she picked up her chopsticks and began eating. The sky outside the window turned crimson. She ate very quietly, not at all like the stern director Liu everyone had seen during the day. She was no longer the cold older sister, but simply looked like the sick, fragile girl number 10. Why are you so nice to me?" The question suddenly burst from my lips. I added silently, "Probably just because you're my roommate." She looked at me. There was something in her gaze that I couldn't put into words, but it made my heart beat wildly. "Roommate," she repeated very quietly. Then she lowered her head and continued eating, adding, "Stop talking." I left the room and she walked me to the door. In the living room, Li Xia was reading a book without raising his head, but his hand froze for a moment. "Number 10, he said without turning around. "Do you know what Article 31 says?" "I know," I replied. He turned the page with a barely audible rustle. "That's good." I wasn't sure if he was reminding me to follow the rules or hinting at something else, but with Li Xi's personality, it was probably both. The next day, a series of events unfolded that forced everyone in the apartment to gather in the living room. A childhood friend, Zio Rongyu, came to our house, a man in gold glasses and nondescript sportswear. I heard the doorbell ring. Zio Rongyu saw him through the window and her face instantly changed. "Oh my god, how did he find us? Who is it?" Bai Ningbin asked. "Su Chen," she replied. "My parents set me up on this blind date, but I ran away from home so he wouldn't find me here." Wen Ling bit her lip thoughtfully. Zio Rongyu suddenly grabbed my hand. "10th, help me." "What, should I pretend to be your boyfriend?" "Yes, please, please, please." I didn't have time to think. She pulled me close, wrapping her arms around my waist. When Su Cheng entered, his face remained impassive. "Rongyu, this is my boyfriend," she said, clinging to me and smiling dazzlingly. "We're serious, so tell my parents not to do anything else," she added. Su Cheng adjusted his glasses. He looked at me, then at her. "The guy you were talking about's the one Liu Ruyan mentioned." The air in the room seemed to solidify. "Zio Rongyu, what does this mean?" It turns out that Su Chen and Wang Teng were sharing their guesses about the bad and dissatisfied guy Liu Ruyan on social media last week, and I seem to have been in the photo. The speed with which gossip spread among the gilded youth exceeded all my expectations. At that moment, Liu Ruyan returned from work. She walked in with a bag full of documents, and right at the entrance, she was confronted with a scene, Zio Rongyu holding my hand, and I blinked my eyes innocently. Su Chen stood nearby, smiling. Liu Ruyan froze for only a second, then walked past us, her face completely impassive. Zio Rongyu loosened her grip. "She doesn't seem very pleased. What do you think?" Two things happened that night. First, Liu Ruyan tasked me with a mission impossible in the company chat. I had to complete a market report that usually takes 2 weeks in just 3 days. Second, I made braised pork for dinner. Liu Ruyan came out of her room and without a word took the entire plate for herself. Even the chopsticks Su Baijiu tried to hold out remained suspended in midair. "This pork is not for you today," she snapped. Zio Rongyu watched this, her neck clenched in fear. "Is she angry?" "Even Bai Ningbin's eyes have gone white," someone whispered. Yi Kaiangsu sent a message. "My system sees Ruyan eating pork in his room. Ruyan, when did you install the camera in my room?" As it turned out, the camera was not installed by Yi Kaiangsu but by Ruyan herself, and the suspicions were confirmed. None of the group dared return to the mansion. I knew something had to be done, but what exactly? He Qiang, whom I turned to for advice, said, "It seems you've ruined everything. The girl asked me to pretend to be a guy, and the other girl saw it and is now angry." "Is this second girl the one you really care about?" he asked. "Brother, in the fishing industry, it's called disconnection. Listen to me. What you're doing now isn't an explanation, it's an attempt to hide the truth. You just need to come up to me and explain. Your feigned indifference in front of her is a weak performance that only makes her angrier. This is not good. Trust me, act as if nothing happened. Let it come to you. The fish stick better that way." I followed his advice again, though I wasn't sure of success. The next day, I came to work as usual. The usual overtime routine. Director Liu acted as if nothing had happened. A day passed, then another. On the 5th day, she called me into the corridor. "Number 10, Director Liu, have you been hiding from me lately?" "No, I'm just working. Usually in company, you don't even look my way." "Didn't you say that we shouldn't mix personal and professional matters?" She looked at me with a very difficult expression, her eyes a mixture of anger and confusion. There was something I couldn't say. "Are you doing this on purpose or are you just stupid?" I chose silence. If I said it was intentional, I'd be confirming He Qiang's advice. If I said I was stupid, that would be even worse. She turned silently and left. The atmosphere in the living room was tense to the limit that evening. Li Xia sat in the center with everyone gathered around him. Bai Ningbin, Yi Kaiangsu, Su Baijiu, Shen Yuchu, and Zio Rongyu. "Culprit number 10, come and sit down," Li Xia pointed to the chair opposite. "What's wrong again? We decided to help you and Ruyan make peace," Su Baijiu replied. "The atmosphere has been too scary lately. My gaming performance is declining." "What does this have to do with gaming?" "The atmosphere affects your feelings." Bai Ningbin interrupted the argument. "Enough of this nonsense. The plan is this. We'll convince her of one specific decision. Step 1. Yi Kaiangsu accidentally cut off the power to the entire house one night. Step 2. In the dark, Su Baijiu accidentally suggested that everyone watch horror movies using their mobile phone screens. Step 3. Bai Ningbin is responsible for making sure Liu Ruyan sits down to watch the movie. Step 4. Li Xia must say something important at the most critical moment. Step 5. Shen Yuchu is in charge of visual effects, preparing the comic illustration. What's my role? Xiao Rongyu asked. Your role is to remain silent, Yi Kaiengsu snapped. You've already spilled the beans. Xiao Rongyu was honest. I wanted to say the plan was ridiculous, but 6 pairs of eyes were staring at me in such a way that I had no right to refuse. The plan was to be implemented in 3 days. At 9 o'clock that evening, the lights in the house suddenly went out. Subai-jo was the first to scream. Her acting was top-notch. Don't panic, I said, though I was looking at the junction box. Bai Ningbin held the phone, illuminating the way. I don't know what happened, I lied. The fuses blew, I can't get in, I'll have to wait until tomorrow. Yi Kaiengsu let out a strange laugh in the darkness. What should I do? Asked Ruyan, walking out of the room with her phone in hand. Watch a movie, we suggested in unison. Subai-jo raised her hand. My phone is charged, let's not watch a horror movie. But it was part of the script, meant to push her. Ruyan immediately replied, You're giving up too quickly. Why did you blink, Subai-jo? You won't die of fear, I goaded. Or are you afraid? I'm not afraid, I just don't think this is the right time. Then go ahead. In the darkness, without electricity, there was nothing to do. 6 people tumbled into the living room. Finally, they sat down on the sofa. Bai Ningbin very naturally sat to her left, and I, by chance, ended up on her right. The rest of us scattered across the carpet and cushions. It was a Japanese horror film. The first 20 minutes were okay, but after 35 minutes, a truly creepy face appeared on the screen. Subai-jo screamed, It's real. Shen Yuchu buried his face in the counter, and Ruyan, unconsciously grabbing the closest thing, exclaimed, It's my hand. Her fingers dug into my skin so hard it hurt, but I didn't move. After about 5 seconds, she realized she was holding me and pulled away. In the darkness, I couldn't make out her face, but I felt the air around her warm up a few degrees. Li Xia decided it was time to act. Julian, if you're afraid, sit closer, he said. It's okay, I'm not afraid, she muttered through clenched teeth. But for the next 40 minutes, her shoulder and my shoulder were inextricably linked. We didn't sit down intentionally, but we didn't move away either. When the movie ended and the lights came on, everyone pretended nothing had happened and went to their rooms. Only Li Xia remained next to me. Well done, he said. You did nothing and it worked. I smiled. A month later, the company won a major tender. Liu Ruyan was responsible for leading the team, and this was excellent news. But Wang Teng, who couldn't calm down, secretly made a deal through a traitor in the Ruyan team to intercept the project. We prepared in advance. 2 days before submitting our application, Ruyan discovered that our plan had leaked to the press. I'll never forget the look on her face. It wasn't anger, but an icy, composed calm after betrayal. Number 10, we're working overtime today, redoing the entire plan, she said, looking me straight in the eye. The look in her eyes made it impossible for me to refuse. We spent that evening together in the conference room. By 4 in the morning, we were ready. She was in charge of strategy, I was in charge of data models. I returned to the rental apartment to get my charger when Yi Kaiengsu intercepted me. I heard the plan was leaked online. Do you need technical support? She asked bluntly. Encryption, finding the source of the leak, I can help, she said in her usual serious tone. Thank you, I replied. Even though Sister Ruyan is strict, she is a good person. I just don't like it when good people are treated this way, were the longest kind words she ever said. All new documents were encrypted and each copy was marked. Seeing the security measures, Ruyan asked, When did you manage to do this? My neighbor taught me, I replied. She paused, then quietly said, Come back and thank him for me. On the day of the auction, our new project won by a landslide. Wang Teng's old plan, which he had copied, proved useless. Yi Kaiengsu incorporated several minds into the original plan, and the judges quickly realized who was copying whom. Wang Teng was excluded from the project. Rumor has it his father caused him a huge scandal at home. The Ruyan team went to a restaurant to celebrate their victory. Ruyan rarely drank, but after 3 glasses of red wine, her face turned noticeably red. We were the last to leave. You've had too much to drink, be careful, I said. She replied, I'm not drunk, you're walking among the flowers. The road was uneven. She stopped and looked at me, her eyes glittering with alcohol and something else I couldn't place. Number 10, why are you always around? Whenever something happens, you're always there. You fix the mistakes, you work. Were you there when Wang Teng arrived, when the plan leaked? Do you just live next door so you can always show up at the right moment? I live here because the rent is cheap. She smiled. It was the first time I'd seen such a smile, not professional or polite, but genuine, unadorned. The rent was low, she repeated, looking at me. She smiled again. You're so cruel. She didn't finish because she was too proud to admit her feelings. I hugged her. She leaned against me. The room was quiet. The others were already asleep, and the light in the living room was off. The only light on the balcony was moonlight. She stood in front of the glass door, looking at the moon, and then she did something that left me speechless. She kissed me very tenderly, touching my moonlit skin. Then she stepped back and looked into my eyes. Her gaze was crystal clear, not at all like the gaze of someone who had just drunk 3 glasses of wine. Didn't you say I drank too much? I asked. You didn't drink too much, she replied. I've been drinking grape juice since my 2nd glass. The waiter just helped me replace it. I was stunned. Then why did you get behind the wheel? On purpose. Number 10, she interrupted me, looking straight into my soul. How much longer do you expect me to take the initiative? At that moment, under the moon, she stopped being a strict leader. She wasn't wearing a protective mask or office armor. She was just a girl who had been waiting for something for a very long time. Article 31, she said. I told you one of them was wasted. When? I chuckled, taking her hand. Then I'm officially announcing I like you, and not because the rent is cheap or you're my leader or even because of the cabbage at night. Sweet, okay, that last reason is important too, I smiled. Her ears turned red, and this time I noticed it clearly. Shut up, she muttered, but didn't let go of her hand. From that moment on, things moved very quickly. Although our feelings were open, Julian insisted. We are not yet officially boyfriend and girlfriend, so we decided not to advertise our status for now. There were too many nuances between work and shared accommodation. This confidentiality plan lasted exactly 3 days. On the first day, we were secretly holding hands in the kitchen. Subai-jo suddenly flew in, and we flew apart at the speed of light. She looked at me, then at Ruyan, at our hands, and asked, "What are you playing?" Discussing the recipe. Ruyan's face went lifeless. Do you have to stand this close to discuss the recipe? Subai-jo left, determined to get to the bottom of it. On the second day, I was watching TV, and Ruyan was sitting next to me with a folder. We secretly intertwined our fingers. Shen Yuchu passed by, saw everything, and blushed. I didn't see anything, he said from the hallway. You really didn't see anything, Ruyan shouted after him. On the third day, while we were waiting for a kiss on the stairs, the elevator doors opened. Bai Ningbin stepped out. We froze. He looked into the distance, then at our faces, at Ruyan's slightly swollen lips, and understood everything. 10 minutes later, the group in the messenger simply exploded with messages. Bai Ningbin announced to everyone, Article 31 has been activated. Even though Ruyan still insisted she wasn't, number 10, we were officially in a relationship. Subai-jo was jubilant. Zio Rongyu wrote, "Finally, I've been waiting for 3 months. Who owes me money for the bet now?" Before the new year, Bai Ningbin sent a greeting card to the group. There were little people and 6 cats drawn on it. Someone was clapping, someone was taking pictures. This was our home. Ruyan and I stood on the stairs, staring at the phone screen. She locked it in her hand. Now the whole world knows. It's just a shared rental, she tried to joke, but I knew everyone would find out in 3 days. Then just do it, I said. For the first time, she was speechless, just looking at me. That evening, all 6 of them gathered in the living room with a formal demand. Li Xia said, "Pay your bills." "You took her heart from us," Bai Ningbin said. "The price is a whole year's worth of weekend dinners." "1 year, we asked for 2, he added. "Ruyan helped you for a whole year, that's a fair price." I looked at her. She was drinking coffee with an impassive face. A year wasn't much at all. "Take this," I said. She was silent, but I saw her smile faintly. I looked around, 7 happy faces, 1 fake deal, and a sea of enthusiasm from Subai-jo. Shen Yuchu created the master and food folder, and Yi Kaiyingsu proposed a 1 to 5-star rating system for dishes. Food below standard is not allowed, she insisted. Zio Rongyu demanded that desserts be brought in at least once a month. Bai Ningbin added the protein content must be within the recommended limits. Ruyan didn't participate in the argument, simply warming her hands over the cup. But I noticed that she laughed, not professionally, but sincerely, looking at us like a noisy family. I walked over and sat down next to her. Our fingers touched for a second under the table, the most touching moment of my life. The city lights shone outside the window. Subai-jo rattled dishes in the kitchen, and Bai Ningbin argued about the film's structure. Zio Rongyu and Yi Kaiyingsu were arguing over the kitchen. Li Xia was smiling. Shen Yuchu was drawing. Rent 1,200 yuan, 42 rooms, 7 roommates with different personalities, and me, a nanny-turned-lad. New house rules: in a group, it is forbidden to provoke the emotional life of neighbors. Article 42. If a couple is in a group, it is prohibited to stand together for more than 5 seconds. The offender prepares breakfast and dinner. The sentence has been changed to 5 seconds, Subaijo wrote. 3 seconds isn't even enough time to hug. I locked my phone with a smile. Kiang sent me a message. So you ended up sleeping with her? I replied, I didn't sleep with her, I went back home. He sent a fishing rod emoji. The writer was right, I didn't reply. Because Ruyan asked me, what do you want to eat tomorrow? What will you do and what will I do? She spoke frankly as if this ordinariness were the highest truth. I realized she trusted me. I got up and went to the kitchen. Tomorrow was a new day. Cabbage, 4 eggs, and a piece of tofu were waiting for us in the fridge. Everything was just like the day I first moved in, but everything was different.